Shop the Sherwin-Williams July Summer Sale and get 30% off paints and stains July 18th through the 28th. With prices starting at $34.29, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your interior or exterior, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Hey everyone, a quick note about this week's episodes. Our guest is Ken Kraus, a former U.S. Marine who was kidnapped, tortured, and sentenced to death in Iran in 1979. Now, obviously, he survived or we wouldn't have him as a guest, right? But Ken's going to discuss his ordeal during that time, which includes gun battles, beatings, torture, murder, and the resultant PTSD he experienced. Some might find portions of this three-part interview disturbing. Most of you won't. But I just wanted to give you a heads up just in case. Ken Kraus is a true American patriot and hero, and I'm honored to host him on The Game of Crimes. Hope you all enjoy this week's episodes.
We went back up to the same torture chamber, and I was wondering, how much longer can it last? Dear Lord, have mercy on me. I said, let my heart burst, let my brain shut my body down. I can't take anymore. It's like living in hell that, you burn and burn, but you never get consumed. You have no hope of dying. It just never ends. It's just forever. So you're really starting to work on your brain, and it's horrifying. It's pure terror from inside your brain, inside your heart. And you know that no one's ever going to find you again. No one's ever going to see you again. And you're not even going to die a heroic Marine combat wounded. They're not even going to know anything. You're going to die here, and your bones are going to be left down on the hallway and near the toilet. It's all that runs through your mind is just crazy.
Hey, all you Game of Crimes fans, thank you for coming back for part 2 of this week's episode with Ken Kraus. If you saw yesterday's episode, I know you're back today because we kind of left you on a cliffhanger there where Ken's just been shot. He's at the American Embassy in Tehran, Iran, and on Valentine's Day, 1979. I'm sure it's a day he will never forget. I know when I mentioned it to him yesterday, he saw that little screen come out. He knows exactly what he's gone through is just unbelievable. That's why I continually refer to him as an American patriot and an American hero. He represented his country as a U.S. Marine. He did his country proud. He saved 22 people by sacrificing himself, and it's only by a miracle of God that he's sitting here with us today on the show. So, Ken, thank you so much, brother, for coming back for part 2. When we left it yesterday, you had already been shot there at the embassy, and you wake up in a hospital not knowing how you got there. Is that correct?
Yeah, Steve. Thanks again for having me back again. And I don't want to be left hanging either, because I tell you, I'd like to share this story with people. And if it was almost a chance for them to call in at times, but just barring that, it's a privilege and honor to say thank you so much for letting me share this. Because afterwards, when you talk about the book that's attached to it, people that have been through very similar situations, first responders and our veterans, the post-traumatic stress really kicks in at times, and it's opportunities like this that I want to say thank you, because it helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, basically after the...
I apologize for not doing this sooner, but here's the front cover of Ken's book. It's Ken Kraus, a Marine endures hell, and he's talking about being held hostage, the first hostage when was it the Fedayeen? Is that how you say that?
Fedayeen cock.
Yeah, so they came in and took over the U.S. Embassy in Tehran back in 1979. The book's available on Amazon. I'm going to put some places on there where you can get the links and so forth, and it'll soon be available. There'll be a link on the Game of Crimes podcast website. So you can just go there. It'll take you right to Amazon. You can order a copy of Ken's books. All right, brother, you're in the hospital.
Yeah. So I wake up in a hospital and not realizing where I was, but it was a field hospital. And I remember trying to wake up and not knowing where I was. I don't have my uniform on, so I go to sit up, and I feel this sharp pain in my chest. And I had been opened up for about the shotgun that hit me. I don't know what what kind of load was in it, but it opened up right between the openings in my flak jacket, and it ripped open some of my stomach and my intestines. And whoever it was that put me back together again just stapled it for the most part, and wrapped it in bandage, almost looked like surgical duct tape. It was the weirdest thing I ever seen. Remember 1979. But the pain was just excruciating. I looked over and I had intravenous on both arms, some kind of off-colored and clear stuff. Who knows? But there was no one around. I couldn't move because I had the beating that I had taken at the restaurant. They had cracked my ribs with a AK-47. They pounded into the side of me. They had kicked me and broken my coccyx and tailbone, so I could barely able to move my hips. And if anybody ever fell and bruised or even bumped their coccyx or tailbone, you can tell how horrible that constant pain is, you know. And anyway, they had stabbed me with the points of the bayonet, or when I actually passed out, I'm beating unconscious. I had, in the book, it'll tell you, I had woke up and, you know, it was ice cold in there up in the Ellsberg Mountains there in February. And for some reason, I'm wondering, you know, why I'm all wet. And I'm saying, I'm wet and I can't move. And I'm huddled up in a fetal position. And then I smell it. The guys had urinated on me when I was unconscious. They beat me to beat a rag doll. And, you know, you read that in the book. I'm assuming at this point that once they had urinated all over me and spit on me and whatnot, I was unconscious as rag doll. They wanted to poke me to, you know, see if I was, you know, if I was still alive or whatever. So I don't know, because I seen little poke holes in the sides of my shoulders and the side of my neck and face that were bleeding. And I'm saying, just where the hell am I? I'm just laying in the bed there, and I have just one of those gowns on, and it's wide open in the back. My uniform gone, my boots, everything I had, dog tags, ID tags. I said, everything's gone. I'm just a little white boy laying here with my ass hanging out. And this little nurse comes walking by, and I call her over, and she walks over, and I remember her name being Souza. And it was written on her name tag in English and Farsi. And she was saying, no, shh, you don't talk. And I said, what, where am I? Shh, don't talk. And I tried to ask her a few questions. Like, where am I? What happened? Because I've been cleaned up. My hands, my face, and, you know, there's a little bandage over top of my eye from, I don't know, a kick or a punch or whatever. And I said, obviously I've been cleaned up. I said, whatever. And she says, shh. I said, I'll be back. And she pulled the drape across the bed. And I just laid there wondering what the heck happened. Well, she came back a little while later and opened the drape. And she's saying, look, you know, talk. People coming to here to see you. I said, what people? I said, I want to know who people. I said, you know, you need to tell me, you know, what's going on. And he goes, no, they say, you see. And her English was good, but she was trying to tell me that they think whoever took me out of the embassy handed me over now to the hospital. People in the hospital don't know who I am. Whoever took all my ID and everything, they just know that I'm an American from the embassy. So he says, these people come to talk to you soon. They think you're CIA. What's CIA? I said, CIA. I went, I'm out, folks. I'm not CIA. I don't want them to think of anything like that. I said, I'm a Marine Guard. I was at the American Embassy. I said, it was overrun. We had a gun battle. I got wounded. Now I'm here. What's going on? So she started to try. She said, I don't know. She was just told to keep me quiet. And if I needed anything medicinal wise, I said, no, I'm in a lot of pain. But she says she didn't have anything for pain. I was not allowed to be given anything for pain. And I said, well, everything. I mean, the wound itself didn't hurt that much unless I tried to move. But to take this coccyx bone, the broken ribs, I couldn't even take a full breath of air. So you're not really getting all the oxygen that you really should, you know?
Right.
I talk about that book, and here's miracle number 3. All right. She says she'll be back again. And she left the curtain open. This guy from the British Broadcasting System, I've worked for years to try to find out what his name was, because he's a guy that snaps a picture of me in the hospital that's famous in the book right there, that went on the front news, went all around the world. If it wasn't for that photograph, I'd be dead. And I'll show you that photograph. Anyway, so he pops his head and he says, you from the embassy? And I said, yeah. So obviously you're not Farsi, you're not Iranian. And he says, no, I work for BBC, and said his name. I don't remember what it was. And he didn't get quite the accolades he needed for that photo. That's why we could never track it down. Back then, remember, there's no .com, no internet. He's his freelance photographer or whatever. So he takes that picture of me laying there in the bed, and he's just asked a couple questions. And I realized that, well, man, he's probably my best shot at, I'll tell him a little bit. I said, yeah, I'm a Marine. You can tell by the haircut. And I said, whatever was happening, and gave him the 411 on, you know, what happened that morning. And he says, well, the embassy's been taken over. The flag's down. It's not flying. There's smoke coming from and flames coming from the Chancery building. And he says, none of them, you can't see none of the Marine guards. And there's a lot of people that don't belong in the embassy over there, some type of terrorists or whatever, all walking around, parading around as if they owned the place. And when they had weapons and we couldn't see what was going on, it looks like they have either they've taken complete control of the embassy. We don't know where the people are, the Americans that are inside, if they're alive or whatever. And I'm laying there saying, holy shit. Yeah, there was a gun battle going. Actually, several little gun battles going in different areas of the embassy as the Marines were told to surrender or to they ran out of ammo and just couldn't control the fight anymore. I knew that what he was saying could possibly be, most probably, be realistic. And so he took my picture. He said, "I'll get back to you." And I never seen him again. Boom, he's gone. I fast forward to Sousa, and she comes back, and it's weird because you want to talk about on the other side of the world here. I said, well, where'd you learn your English from? It's good. She goes, I go to school, a nursing school in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. I said, Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania? I said, that's just outside Philadelphia. I'm from Philadelphia. And we have a short little talk. And I said, I went to Valley Forge Military Academy. I graduated there. And she goes, I know that place. When she was a nurse or whatever, and I guess going to nursing school up there, she would go to the military academy for dances or, or things like that, or dates. I said, what a small world to find. Yeah. So, you get a little bit of humor or something like that. Well, just then these three big goons walk in, and they looked and dressed semi-military, but they're carrying their weapons, and they look just like somebody from the group that, attacked the embassy. And they walked in, they spoke Farsi to Sousa. And the next thing you know is they walk in and they grab the intravenous and jerk it out of my arms, and then it comes detached so that the blood is squirting, and she's and they're trying to grab me out of the bed. She pushes them out of the side. She pushes them out of the way and says something in Farsi to them, and says it's basically, it looks like what she's saying at the same time her action decries that she's going to I can't move much because you can see the bandages on my stomach. It's just a pile of bandages. I mean, it's amazing whatever they put in there. It looked like they got a pillow and they wrapped it with duct tape. Anyway, so she pulled out the needles of the arm and bandaged them up. They put their hands in front of me and put these D-ring type of handcuffs on. They're weird looking, not regular handcuffs with the ratchet, like a D-ring one, and it goes in with a special key.
Yeah.
Just as effective.
Yeah.
But she moves me around to try to get me out of the bed, and next thing I know is they're putting a blindfold on me. And I said, blindfold's never really good. Usually when they taught you in SEER school, survive, escape, resist, and evade, hostage intervention, when they put blindfolds on you, it's mostly because they don't want you to see where you're going or to see anybody that's involved in where you're going to be. So they're taking that option away from you. But then they put a hood over your head. Now, hoods are really bad news, because when they put a hood over your head, it means they don't want other people to see them taking you out. In other words, they put a hood over my head. One, so when you're being taken out, if anybody was to come and say, hey, did you see this American? Did you see this Marine? Did you see it? No, I did not see him. They can literally, technically, pass a polygraph and say they didn't see you because you were hooded. So they couldn't identify you, even in a court of law, if it got there. Second thing is it disorients the hell out of you. You can't see anything. My breathing was already restricted from cracked ribs. And it kind of just, if you're claustrophobic, you're going to find out right then and there if you're claustrophobic or not. Thank God I wasn't. But it also affects all your senses and things like this. And it gives you something else, throws your mind off rather than just blindfold and playing blind man's bluff. So they grab hold of me and, they had to help me walk because I couldn't even walk with the way my condition of my ribs and my coccyx bone was.
Yeah.
And they're almost dragging me through my arms, outside. You can see how cold it was, and get telling. You can feel because the back end of your ass is hanging out of this damn gown, and there's nothing else to do. They throw me in the back of a truck and lay me down and kneel on top of my head and keep my head down. And it was about a 15-minute ride. I'm just freezing. I can't remember ever being so damn cold in my life. It was so bad. You didn't have much to eat to begin with. You've gone 20 hours now without sleep. You're injured. Your body's trying to fight infection, and everything else. And no clothes on in the middle of winter over there in the Ellsberg Mountains. And you're shivering so bad that I don't know what's going to happen. And then I'm going to just, freeze to death. Where are they going to take me? You had no clue. So, It was about 10, 15-minute drive, and it's not far from the hospital because the vehicle stops, and I could hear gates opening and closing, the vehicle gates, and I said, I have no idea, but it's not the embassy gates, so I'm not going back to the embassy. The smell that I can smell with diesel fuel, and are we near the airport? Because it smells like diesel fuel or jet fuel. I didn't know. Totally disoriented, like I didn't know. They're trying to get me out of the vehicle. And I just remember, look, I hope that Susan would tell you that I'm injured and I got broken bones and I'm freezing to death. And you guys just want, no shoes or anything. They didn't care. They just kick you out back like a garbage can out of a garbage truck. And you fall down and you don't know where you're going. You can't see anything. You just put your hands up to protect yourself and hope that you don't split your skull. And they help you. You get up, they help you to your feet, and they drag you inside. And now you're inside a building. And shortly thereafter, I mean, not to bore you with all the details of the book, but they take you down to a hallway and put you in this little chamber by yourself. Now, I knew I was by myself because I waited and I listened and I couldn't hear anything. So usually if somebody's going to put you in a room with somebody, it's going to be a few minutes before somebody's going to clear their throat or make some movement or noise or something like that.
Right.
But they shortly came back in after that. Different guys. These guys are just the transporters. I have no idea where I'm at. The next guys that come in, they don't really introduce themselves, but they are different because they take my hood off and my blindfold. They rip that off and it opens up my eye again and some of the other wounds that I had and start a little bleeding again. And I tell them, look, here's my injuries. And they slap you silly or kick you and get you to shut up. And basically, so they take my gown off and stand me up and look at all of my wounds and all that, make fun of you and your anatomy and, everything else. So it's just dehumanizing and very embarrassing. It's humiliating at the time. And you're freezing. You're so cold that you're literally shaking like you're playing drums, you can't even take a full breath. So they tossed me like a smock shirt, heavy smock shirt. And it was a blue color, kind of like the blue I'm wearing here, and a pair of black, pajama bottoms. And the shirt, when they had to help me put it on, I couldn't lift my arms up, and they helped me put it on. It already had bullet holes in it. It already had, look at it, they said, damn, somebody, the last guy that had this on got shot. Holy shit.
Oh my
and
gosh.
By the way, he was a lot taller than me, And so that's where, for the most part, I realized, now where the hell am I and who's got me? These guys were dressed totally different. They were more like a jumper outfit. And I could realize this is some kind of jail or prison because these guys are different. They didn't have weapons. They didn't need weapons. We're locked inside. Who knows where we're at? So for me, that starts that trip down memory lane. And when I say I don't know what
your medical treatment is what, a slap or a kick? Yeah.
And it's not like they cared, whether they hurt you or not. The common sense thing here is, why are you even trying to keep me alive and take me all through here when you're just not? If you want something from me, you got to try to keep me alive, guys. Do the logical thing. And basically, they didn't care. Their job was to
logic
prep
didn't
me
come into play on much of that.
They weren't over scrupulous about how they got me to be prepared to meet the next round of fun guys. With that, I just told them, I said, they gave me a piece of rug, and I describe it in the book, and it's just something that you wouldn't even give an animal in a shelter. It's weird because Persia and the Iranians are known for really great rugs. It's one of their culture high points. I said, man, what is it with these guys that they can barely have enough clothes to keep warm in this place? And I could never stop shivering. But then the thing that overtakes that is the smell. And you've read the book, Steve. I've never smelled anything like it in my life. It's worse than death. It's worse than burnt human being flesh. It's a mixture of both. It's a mixture. If you've ever been to a landfill in July, where everything that's ever consumed or disposed of in human nature is out there in one field, and you smell it in July. And if you could take a deep breath, which I probably couldn't at the time, you'd probably gag, because that nasty whatever is in the air gets into your mouth and in your throat and starts to gag you. And I said, where am I? On top of a garbage dump or what? We get it's to a point where you're in so much pain that you actually literally you pass out. You close your eyes and you say, there's so much that hurts me, that you go into a deprivation of consciousness. and you're almost like in a sleep mode because the pain is working on probably your heart and probably working on a trauma that your body doesn't know what to do. It wants to shut down or just stop functioning. And since I had been shot, which would be 11, 12 o'clock, because it was like a 3-4 hour firefight, I had not seen the light of day. So when you're not seeing the light of day, you don't know how long you've been out. Was I out a day, a week, a month? I mean, I was out at least 6-8 hours from to do a little mini surgery on me. I did not have any light or food prepared for me, and I didn't have any windows or light. So when I came to and I was talking with Susan, it wasn't on the agenda for what was important at that moment. I had other questions that I had that she couldn't help with. Right. So then you get hooded up and you get blindfolded and you're taken out. Don't know if it's day or night. So I have no idea that I had been shot on Wednesday, February the 14th. No clue what time it is. And it's no idea where I am. No idea that anybody knows where I am or even gives a shit. You're talking about would be between the pain, the depression, the panic. You're trying to keep everything together. You've had adrenaline dumps after being in a gunfight, and you're all 22 years old. I mean, you're a young man and you're going through this, there's nobody can train you to be prepared totally for this emotionally, spiritually, and physically even. I'm looking down and I'm trying to peel back the bandages in my stomach to see just how bad it was. The tape is just like glue almost. So I don't know what to put. It's amazing. But man, I'll tell you what, it also means that it's going to be a hard thing that somebody's going to have to take that off to clean that wound, which never happens. They did me a favor in one shake of the hand, but on the other, they made it more difficult. It's probably just the cheapest way they're going to bandage me one time and move me on. I guess that's their version of triage.
You weren't a priority to them.
No, not to save him anyway. Somebody just told him, keep the son of a bitch alive till we can figure out who he was. And now that's really down the road that we're going, because I call them the goons. The goons come back in and drag me down the hallway, and literally had to drag me, because when you try to walk with your toxic bone, it just hurts every step of the way. You think you're going to defecate on yourself, or the other way, you're trying to bend forward and to keep your stomach from bursting out, but yet that hurts on the back end of the bone too. And then your ribs, just goes on and on. I don't want to bore your people with it. But my God, man, it's if I say it once, it's happening every hour on the hour. So as I talk to you, everything that I do continues to have that pain and that agony, and it just works on your mind that you got to focus so hard to even stay conscious with fighting all that pain and whatnot, and then ask yourself the logic of what am I doing, where am I going, and how am I going to get there? It seems like secondary or tertiary to the whole 9 yards. And so the first intersection was that I get in front of these mullahs, these religious weird beard turban wearers, and they wanted to know. Basically, they had to give me a chair to sit in and a table to lean on so I could talk to them. And they want the typical, who are you, what are you, et cetera. And if they keep going over it, I go, look, you're going to get name, you're going to get rank. It used to be serial number, but we don't have serial numbers anymore. And I sure the hell ain't going to give my social security number. And just give them my branch of service and the unit that I'm with. Like, they already knew any of that. I mean, you got my dog tags, my ID, my wallet, you got everything, or somebody's got it. And I just realized that the more back then, it got to a point where these guys really don't know who they got here. They don't know me. They don't know who I am. So they're not the same ones, or they are not acting or talking like the same ones that shot me at the embassy. They're not the same ones that are the same group that transported me over. They weren't the same ones that were here in the jail. They're not all talking to each other in the same sheet of music. So basically, anything I tell them, they don't have paper and pencil in front of me. I don't see any videos. So why are they asking me questions and they're not recording it? Well, it's maybe because when they start beating you, maybe they don't want it to be on record. I said, no, that's not it, because they've already done past that goalpost already. That milepost is in the rearview mirror. And so trying to convince them, here's where you're at with the sanity and the logic of it, is that I got to give them a story that's believable, that I'm not totally worthless, because then they'll just let my wound suffer or kill me, straight out. Then again, I don't want them thinking, I'm the CIA crypto guy or anything that's, the prize of the year.
Yeah.
They'll probably start cutting pieces of my body off so I can tell them what they wanted to. You got to, weigh and measure stuff. Plus, if these guys are affiliated because I came from the embassy, they have access now, if they take it over the embassy, to all the records and things. Who knows? eventually, even if they locked it up in the vault room, that they're going to, they can get through the wall. They'll get through it sooner or later. So, you tell them things like, look, I'm here from Nicosia, Cyprus. I just got here. And that's true, right? You give them partial truth, and then you give them complete false truth, then you mix it up and you just keep them wondering. Yeah, you can see my passport or whatever at the embassy. It'll all be verified for the most part. I said, I worked in a mailroom. Well, how did you get shot? I said, we work in a mailroom, which at one time we have shifts that we do. We search the mail, the boxes, we x-ray things, wand them, and we check. Now, that's important because to them, I would have access to people whose identification, for the most part, was able to receive mail, and who receives mail and who doesn't.
Right.
Now, there's people that have at least dual, or sometimes more than that, identifications and IDs that they work out of. We talked about intelligence, counterintelligence, who they are. Mm-hmm. Do we know who they are? Yeah. Do we know how to separate their mail to who they were at the embassy and who they really actually are? Yes. Well, so these guys are like, that could be interesting. That could be helpful. But I don't want them to think that there's anything that they need to be beating the hell out of anything else. And I don't have that information. I said, I just got there and they asked me how I got shot. And I told them they assaulted the embassy. I was running down the hallway. I gave them a bunch where they would feel, if they had the ability or desire to, feel sorry for me, that I was not anything but a combatant outside, because they weren't there. They don't know who shot who and how many of them we killed or wounded, and they don't know how I got wounded. So it's obvious we're playing a cat and mouse here. But now when they realize, well, back to they take me downstairs through horrible. I describe it in the book, and it's just horrible, disgusting. It's a dungeon, mm-hmm. And I realize that I am now in a prison. Okay, because of the doors and the gates and the bars, and the smell is getting worse and it's getting nastier. We're going down the steps. If I was already at ground level, because I hadn't gone up anywhere, we're at least 2 levels down below. This is a dungeon. Mm-hmm. You're looking at the walls and you're looking at the dirt and the little bit of light that was there, and it was the smell is just so horrifying. Death is what I'm smelling. If hell had an odor, this is what it would probably be like. There's no air down here. There's no windows. Okay. They just a guard, another goon sitting at a desk. They're talking Farsi to each other. I have no clue. They open the gate and they push me in, and the hallway is a bunch of other cells, but the cells, the doors are open and people just meandering around, and they help me. I fall down. I have to crawl, and I'm crawling down the hallway. And it's filthy. There's feces. There's bones. And I don't even know if they're human bones or what kind of bones they are, but they're bones. I said, man, what do you want? Nobody gave me any directions. They didn't tell me what to do. So I I just found a room. One of the cells that I recognized, it looks like the number 7, but it's the number 5, Panj in Farsi. I learned to speak a little bit of Farsi that was there when I recognized, Yek, Du, Ser, Char, Pan, Shish, Al, Fach, Noda. You count in the basics, and then you learn how to add 10 or 20 if you got a number, especially if you're looking at passports, identification numbers, or, telephone numbers written in both, license plate numbers. So it's very useful when you're there. It's just something you taught yourself to do. So become the American is cell number 5. I get in there and I crawl into a corner. got my little rug with me, and I try to move around. And I guess if I remember back 46 years ago, I made enough noise and pain that in English that everybody stopped and that was in there and was looking at me, and they realized, you American. And I said, what was the first giveaway, right? So take a look at me. I don't have the beard, I say, yeah, right. And so they're looking at me and they're saying, American, Sefarat, the embassy. And I recognized that word. And then a guy, I didn't know who they were. I didn't want to,
right.
give myself away. Right. The guy walks up and he introduces himself and he says, my name's Abdal. And I said, well, okay, I'm so-and-so. And he said, you're from the embassy? And I said, yeah, jig is up. You can't give it away no more. And he said, you Marine? I said, yeah. And he said, what are you doing here? I said, well, where's here? And he says, you don't know where you are? I have no clue. And I told him what I went through, and I'm lost. I have no clue. I'm hurt. I'm damaged. I'm broken up. And he says, you are in a place, and I remember this so distinctly, Steve. He says, you are in a place that Allah has forgotten. And I understand his religion, and mm-hmm. I said, okay, give me the name. And he says, you're in Evin prison, in Evin. Evin prison. I said, okay, it's obvious it's a prison, but what's so big about Evin is that it's one of the Shah's Savak secret police's prisons that were built, years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's built on the ruins of an old castle. You're in the look at the walls, and I can look at the walls now because my eyeballs have adjusted to the darkness, and I can say, I'm in a freaking dungeon. This is bizarre. I said, what is that smell? And he says, we don't smell it anymore because we're down here for so long. And he says, but there's no wind, no air. He said, we'll just piss and shit everywhere. And speak of that, he said, where do I go to the toilet at? He says, walk all the way down the end of the hallway. There's a little, like half a closet, and there's a hole in the ground, a hole in the floor where you squat over, and there should be a bucket with some water in it that you clean your hands with. I said, you're kidding me. I know, that's the way it is. Well, I'm going to need help to get down to the bathroom. And he says, no one here will help you. No one is against you, but no one here will help anybody else. I said, that's just wonderful. So if you got to go to the bathroom, you have to crawl down the hallway, right? 50, let's say, it's going to be about a dozen cells, so 5 feet in between each one, 70, 80 feet, whatever. The smell is that some people that can't go to the toilet, and they just go to the toilet wherever they were. The only things that they said, do not go to the bathroom in your own cell, because the other ones that are in your cell with you, there was about 10 of us in there. It's 10 by 12 by 15. He'd say, just don't, go to the bathroom there. And why am I here? And he says, why are any of us here? Most of us worked for the Shah or for the government. When Khomeini came in, the Ayatollah Khomeini came in, he opened up the cells, all the crazies, all the criminals he let out, and he started putting all the Shah's people, pro-Shah people back in here. They hold you here until they find you, you go to trial, or they find out who you are and what you did. And if you're somebody that they can be useful in the revolution, they might keep you alive. He said, otherwise, if you were someone that worked for the Shah, or you're an enemy or a threat, he said, they find you guilty and they'll take you to the roof and execute you. I said, what? I said, if you were quiet, he's saying, shh, quiet. If you listen from time to time, when it's really quiet, you can hear the rifles. Yeah, I thought I heard pops earlier. He says, that's them executing prisoners from here.
Wow.
And they just take you to the roof and shoot you. Yeah. And they don't care. It's like at any revolution where the new guys come in, get rid of the old guys, and they clean house. He says, we don't know why you would be here. And I told him, and he said, they did not believe you. I said, I don't know if they believe me or not, but they put me down here. He says, that's because they don't believe you. They're not sure about you yet. He said, you are important to them until they find out that you were no longer of any use, just like I figured. And I said, and after that, they let you starve to death, just fester your wounds and die, or maybe they take a bullet on you upstairs.
Wow.
So it's my job is to, is to try to keep myself half-assed important and alive. And the whole time the people were there, most of them didn't speak Farsi. He did. He used to be a pilot that had government contracts with the Shah, with the company. So I don't know how well he ever did, but when you get into the book, it talks about the first ones that I met, or that met me, came in, they took me upstairs, back upstairs again. And again, the whole time I'm saying, as you're trying to get some sleep, when you just pass out, you wake up, you're putting your ass up against the wall to keep from getting gang raped. And you have next to no food, no water. My throat is so damn dry, I can't even really talk. And they'll come down, they'll help you up, and they'll help you up the steps. They had to help me a lot because I really couldn't. I couldn't walk with my toxaphone. I couldn't even open a door or do anything with my arm with my ribs. Well, the first ones that got a crack at me were these guys that they brought me into this room that till this day, if we ever have a conversation, you remember me saying the chair. And it was so horrible that I couldn't even put the chair on the cover of my book. It bothers me so much. And the chair is bolted. It's an old little steel chair that's bolted to the floor, and right over top, it's over top of a drain. And I looked at it in this room, and I said, you bolted the chair to the floor. It didn't dawn on me. I mean, my brain's barely got two brain cells rubbing together between the pain and the fear, the depression, everything else, and a stench. My God, man, it keeps coming back. That at first I didn't realize. Well, you put it right over a drain. What good is that? Well, if you find that out in a minute. These guys came in suits, and right away, as soon as they opened their mouth, you could tell they were Russian. Okay, right. What's the gig? And they were decent suits, but they sat down, they introduced themselves, and Of course, they admitted that they were Russian businessmen, that their company does business with the Shah, or now with the new government that came in. And he heard that there's an American over here, and they wanted to come over and see if there could anything to do to help me. And also right away, you just look at him and say, KGB, or GRU, one of the two. And they just wanted to get the first crack. And the Russians found out, hey, and in the book, it has to go back why the Russians helped the Fedayeen Kalk take over, gave them support to take over the embassy, because they wanted the embassy out of there, right, because of the SALT I, Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, where we work in the mountains up there. We work, Secret Squirrel works, and they report back out of the embassy. With the embassy fallen, they had to pull all them guys out of there. They're useless. They were the ones that watched what the Russians do, and with even more than satellites right there in that area in the Caspian Sea. That's the Russian areas where they shoot their missiles and do all the tests. And basically, Congress wasn't going to go out with a SALT II agreement unless we could remember trust but verify. Well, How are you going to be verify? Half your intel just got whacked at the embassy. So they didn't know who I was. So they wanted to come over and basically, and at that time I didn't know it. Since then, the debriefs and, what I went through, I understood. And I kept looking at that Russian's watch, because he had a Rolex watch, and I was trying to see the calendar. You can look on the calendar and say, well, I got shot on the 14th. What day is it? And I keep trying to look at it like this, and he could see, and he pulls the sleeve of his jacket down over it, so he didn't want me to see it. These guys have been newbies or something. They're not really good at this. Because if you wanted to mess with me, what you need to do is take that and wind it backwards. Wind it so that you've been there 24 days or something. Really mess with my head, because again, I have not seen the light of day. And when you when you eat, the first meal that we had is they bring these carts down, and it's just a big giant wooden bowl of barenge rice. It's clumped rice. It's got these little peas and red peas and green peas, look like lentils. I describe it in my book as it's a hunk of meat, but be God, to this day, I call it mystery meat. I've never seen anything like it. Now, I know it's not pork because they're Muslims. Not going to be pork. It was not the same bone or construction I've ever seen in a chicken. I don't think they're going to give good beef to
people that
criminals that they're going to shoot. Yeah. So I think it's boiled camel meat is probably about as close as I get, or horse meat or something. But it was just so nasty, just terrible. And you didn't get 3 meals a day. If you got 3 meals a day, you could probably figure out logically how long you've been there. No, they bring it in, and if you're there, you get in, you grab what you can with your hands, and they have a pitcher of water, and everybody shares the water, and you just get with it and get as much rice and stuff as you can, and get back to your little bungalow in the corner.
Yeah.
Well, they asked the questions, and I'm telling them, I said, look, guys, I don't want me to be rude with you guys, because I'm not trying to put on my Joe Pesci Jersey accent, because there's just not the time for that right now. They're not showing a sense of humor. And although I'm getting delirious now because I haven't eaten much, dehydrated, your brain is fried, you're in all kinds of pain. I just keep going over this in a book, and it just keeps reminding you just what kind of shape you're in. With 3 or 4 more, questions, and pretty much they talked about weapons and things like that. And basically, I think I convinced them that I was a Marine, and that I just got caught up in a gunfight, and that I'm really of no use to them. I'm of no intelligence concept that they could use anywhere. Mm-hmm. They leave, and then these guys come in, and this is where it gets rough. Is that the other goons, these guys speak pretty good English. They come in and take me out of the chair, and they put me on a bench in the same room. And they bring one of their own Iranian guys in and put him in the chair. And they start to go to work on him. They strap him in, and they're screaming at him in Farsi. I have no idea what they're saying. I'm just there to watch it. And this guy goes over to a box and grabs it looked like a pair of pliers at first. I thought it was scissors. I said, no, he's going to cut this guy. And the goon grabs hold of it. It actually looks more like a pair of pliers or tile chippers. And he tries to get into the guy's mouth, and the guy's, moving back and forth. And another guy came over with a bar, and it just looked like a screwdriver without a handle on it. It just puts it right up against the mouth and pushes in on it, and it forces the guy's mouth open. The guy with the pliers reaches in and grabs hold of this guy's front tooth that you can see just like mine here. Grabs his front tooth, and he's screaming at him in Farsi, and he's pulling back and forth, and you just see this guy wriggling around all over, and he's urinating and defecating on himself. And I can sit there and I said, I understand why the drain is underneath the chair now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, you hear the guy screaming and he's saying, I said, oh, God, have mercy. And when he couldn't get the tooth out, he snapped it off on a gum line. And you just see the guy just screaming and like it looked like he had an electrical cattle prod up his butt. They open the mouth, they try to go back in and get a molar, go and get another one. This guy just passes out down and he's limp. And they drag him out and you can just see the urine and the feces trail going with him. Just adds more to that stench that there's no air flowing in that place. I said, my God. So they took me back to my cell and I got reunited with my cellmates. And Abdal says, what are you doing back? And I said, I don't know. These Russian guys were talking to me and I don't know what's going to happen next. And I said, why do you ask? And he says, well, usually when people are taken out, they don't come back in. They either get to go free or, they take you upstairs and execute you. I said, oh, shit, it ain't my lucky day, And so it's just hours go by and you fall asleep, you pass out, you don't know how long you've been out. Abdul's the only one that really wants to talk to you. You've read the part in the book that I usually don't put on video that you understand that.
Fine.
You got to get the book to read it. It's something I got to live with. And then another time is that they come to get the American in cell number 5, and I don't realize is why did they do this? The whole thing's in my mind. Why are they doing this to their own people? But they could easily do. If they want some information from me, they could have done it. But I guess I was still under the purview of what the Russians were asking or wanted to know about me. The second time they took me up there, it was just to watch another torture session. It was usually what I was told or I came to learn is that they brought this guy in. They had him, and in addition to the chair, they had a table that they had moved in there into the torture chamber room. And they strapped this guy down, and he was completely naked. They brought him in. He was in good shape. I said, well, whatever this poor bastard did, they strapped his head and his feet and his arms and on the table. And I said, I hope to God that I don't have to watch nothing like a disembowelment or some kind of heinous surgery or something like that. They took I say about a 3-foot piece of yellow nylon rope, and they lit it on fire with a lighter, and it started to cook. It started to melt. As it melted, dripped almost like candle wax. And if anybody's ever been burnt with stuff like that, it's excruciatingly hot. And when it hits, it instantly burns a hole and it cauterizes the wound. So it looks like a crater of the moon or something. And it was just hideous. And the agony this guy was in, again, he was defecating and urinating on himself. I thought any second he was going to pop those leather straps that was holding him on the table. But this guy went up and down and painted his body until the rope got to a point where he couldn't hold anymore. This poor guy passed out sometime. I don't know if he died or not. I think he could possibly have his heart probably freaking burst.
Yeah.
But when they took him off that table, he looked like he had been opened up with a blowtorch. He looked like the crater of the moon. It was unbelievable. And the smell is just incredible. And I get to watch all this, and I'm waiting for them, and I'm sitting there, I'm holding my guts together. My wound's festering. I can feel myself getting septic and being nauseated and can't control myself. And I'm thinking, oh my God, please don't let them put me on that table like that. But they never really came near me. They brought another guy back in, and I'm sitting here watching this whole thing, and I'm wondering, why are they showing me? And I think it's to terrorize me or to depress me or make me frightened. Well, all the above was working, let me tell you. I mean, they're breaking you down. Oh, they're in your head, let me tell you. They're all the way in it. They want to get so far in your head, they want to get in the marrow of your bone. And to another guy they had taken, and they brought him in. And
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, how many days were you there total?
8.
8 days.
8.
And this continued on a daily basis, right?
Well, yeah, you could say I write it in the book daily because I have to come up with some type of time frame for you. But it's time after time after time. I don't know how many hours in between or how many days in between it was, because you go back to fall asleep or you pass out and then you wake up and you said, did I sleep an hour, a week, a day? You got no time frame, no reference whatsoever. See?
Yeah.
So another one
this continues
Yeah, I mean, just the details when another guy they walked in, they're really queer on your feet. When they want to torture and beat you, they like to do a lot of the feet. I noticed because they hog tie these guys' ankles together and threw this rope up over top of a big steam pipe that I didn't realize before. I mean, it's something kind of hot water, something's going through that steam pipe, and they pulled this guy up, so he's upside down and they were beating his feet with it looked like a balloon stick or maybe something that was about as thick as a antenna on a car. And I couldn't tell if it was too dark. It was too dark. I couldn't tell if it was metal or if it was wooden or whatever, but you could hear it like a whip going, whew, whew, whew. And it hit his feet and you could just hear him screaming like crazy. He's screaming in every language but English, but you know what he's trying to say. And he's almost breaking his back trying to get away from the pain. And they beat his feet to look like hamburgers, Steve. I'm telling you, I never seen anybody's feet. They might as well just have taken a chainsaw to the poor guy's feet. And then what they did is they lifted him up higher and they pulled him up to where his feet touched that steam pipe. And then you could smell it. You could hear it sizzle. It sizzled like freaking meat, like hamburger in a frying pan. And then again, the more smell. I said, the smell isn't, Abdal was right. After a while, you don't see how bad it is because it's constant until another smell overtakes it. And it was that flesh, that cooking and that metallic copper smell of burning blood. And you can smell it and he passes out or dies, one of the two. And they drag him out and then they come walking over towards me. And I said, oh yeah. And I'm so weak. I think I'm going to stand up and fight. I can't even stand on my own 2 feet, Steve. Whatever they're going to do to me, I'm never going to last that long. No, they take me back to the cell, and another meal went by, another couple of hours or days or whatever I was sleeping, and we went back to a different office this time. They dragged me back up the steps, and they sent me back in this office, and I knew right away as soon as he came in, he was in a leisure suit back in the 70s. Okay. He wasn't Russian, but he wasn't Iranian either, because the guy that let him in the room with me, they didn't communicate very well. So I learned right away after he started to talk to me that he was Palestinian. He's a member of PLO. And basically he was saying, I mean, I couldn't, I am not control over those animals in the next room. So he was talking down about the guards and what they were doing in the torture chamber. He said, I have no control over what was that. It's disgusting. They're animals. I said, yeah, like you're any better. You know, I didn't say that, but
you're thinking it. Yeah.
Why bring more beatings? I don't need any more beatings. So he was saying, we understand that, you say you're a Marine Guard and you work at the embassy. I said, that's exactly what I said. And it's a story. I'm sticking to it. He says, well, then you should know how the Marines are trained and you should know their protocols and the security procedures and, how they bodyguard and a lot of other information. I wasn't going to call him a liar, but I'm going to say, well, it's all different in every embassy. This one here, I haven't been here that long. We do ours different. We're at the embassy that I'm from. See, believable. And I couldn't say, no, you're a liar because he knows better. And he must have been talking to somebody because he knew that I supposedly worked in the mailroom. And he says, people that work in the mailroom, where they work and they had other alternate identifications and what their jobs are. And he said, maybe you could help us. We have taken over control of the embassy, and not directly, but he wanted to allude to that everybody had been executed or they're in other parts of the prison. I'm the only American here by myself, all alone. No help is coming. Just to dash your hopes. And I expected that.
Right.
Basically, he was saying that all this torture and pain will go away. We can help you with your wounds. We can fix you. No one will ever bother you again. And you can go free. I said, for what? I can't give you any information. I can't tell you security classified information or anything that is going to give you an opportunity, to kill Marines, to attack other Americans. Basically, you're asking me to turn myself over, be a traitor to my country. And he says, well, you don't need to look at it like that. We'll look at it like this so we can take you out of your pain. And I said, forget it, buddy. It ain't going to happen. Nobody knows I'm here. I'll give you that much. My wounds are festering. I have nowhere to go. I'm going to be dead here in a matter of days, weeks. Who knows? I can't try to save my life by becoming a traitor or a turncoat. I can't give you anything that you need. I'm sorry. You can put me through all the torture like that over here. I won't last as long as any of those guys did. But there's nothing that I can give you. You picked the wrong Marine to pick with. You can consider me either too stubborn or just too stupid because I don't have what you need. I wasn't stationed at that embassy. Thank God. If I had been one of the regular Marines at the on that embassy, I had been there for a year or so, I wouldn't have been able to use that ruse. It would have backfired on me. So he was just saying, well, basically he just said, shook his shoulders and he says, I can make all that go away. I tried. And basically left me with the idea is that, look, if you can't help the Russians, if you can't help the Palestinians here, what else are they going to want to do for you? They don't need you anymore. Huh? You just become totally expendable. So they brought me back into the chair room, and that's where in the book it shows where they went to work on me a little bit. They strapped me in the chair, and I mean, I wanted to fight them so bad, but you know, there's just I couldn't even barely stand up, Steve. I couldn't punch my way out of a paper bag. I couldn't even take a full breath, and I'm totally defenseless. They jerked me in the chair, strapped me down, and I said, okay, now what body parts am I going to lose? It's for the first time. This one guy I nicknamed him the Q. Quasimodo is the Grand Inquisitor in the Spanish Inquisition. I looked at him because he's the one that's been dishing out most of the torture. And for the first time, he's wearing a gun. And I just realized, oh, he's got a gun on. Nobody else have a gun here. I mean, that's weird. What's he doing with a gun? Maybe he just came out of somewhere. I don't know. It blew it off. But I did notice it. And there was these three mullahs back in that were not there before. Two with white turbans and one with a black one in the middle. And I just noticed them there. Well, I wonder what they were doing in that place. And you could see they were uneasy about the place. They were looking at each other because they're new to the smell. So they're not there all the time. Yeah, welcome to hell. And so this guy here, my Q man, takes his gun, he takes his pistol. And look at it in the book, I think, where it was dark, and I could best describe it. It looked like a CZ Czech 75 or maybe even a Browning high power 9mm, but something right along those lines, very similar. And he pulls it out. And he brings it over and he sticks it right in against my teeth right here. And he just starts pushing and he starts pushing and I'm pushing back. And he gets to a point where you could just go so far back in the chair. And then that barrel of that gun is going in your mouth, whether you open up or they just go punch it right through the teeth. And it's going to happen. And so I ended up opening my mouth and the slide went right across and chipped my tooth really bad and cracked it open. Now you got something else to worry about with pain. You got a raw nerve on your tooth open. And he was saying, he was screaming at me and about Marine Corps, Vietnam, and everything else. And the guy behind me was pulling on the back of my shirt. I was at about over 180 degrees that I couldn't even go any farther back and couldn't even take a breath. And just said, bam! He pulls the trigger. No sound. I'm expecting him to blow my brains out. And he pulls this trigger and it clicks. It's on an empty chamber. And he laughs, and the other two guys laugh like demons. It's just, you freak out because you expect that to go boom and blow your brains out. And he takes it, he puts it back in his holster. It was on an empty chamber. No bullet, mock execution. And I mean, I'm just a puddle of puppy piss, and I'm useless. I'm right now, you just pour me down the drain. And he walks over and he just jams his boot right into my big toe. Of course, I've been barefoot the whole time, and he he hit my right toe and he broke it from where normally your toe should be straight forward. This one now starts looking, 90 degrees to the east. It didn't even hurt that much. The other pain and everything in my body, when I look down, I can sit down and see that it was not in a natural position. They pull me out. I guess this was a punishment for not being able to be useful, not helping the Russians, not helping the PLO. Who knows why? They had some little conversation with the mullahs that were there, and they took me back to, this is the fourth time now, back to my cell. And they hobbled me in there, and they could see that I was bleeding in the mouth. And Abdul looks at me and he just says, we've never seen anybody come in and out like you. What are they doing to you? And they could see what happens in my mouth, and I pointed to it. I could show them my toe and how it was broken. And they just kept shaking their head. It hurt so much I barely drink water. I couldn't eat or chew anything. It hurt so bad. I fell asleep again, and I don't know how long I was out, but they called for the American cell number 5 one more time. They had to drag me up the steps this time because now I couldn't even step with my toe. I had to walk on the right side of my foot, because the toe wouldn't balance me. It didn't work. It was broken, right at the joint. We went back up to the same torture chamber, and I was wondering, how much longer can it last? Dear Lord, have mercy on me. Let my heart burst. Let my brain shut my body down. I can't take anymore. It's like living in hell that, you burn and burn and burn, but you never get consumed. You have no hope of dying. It just never ends. There is no time. It's just forever. You're really starting to work on your brain, and it's horrifying. It's pure terror from inside your brain, inside your heart. And you know that no one's ever going to find you again. No one's ever going to see you again. And you're not even going to die a heroic Marine combat wounded. They're not even going to know anything. You're going to die here, and your bones are going to be left down on the hallway and near the toilet. And it's all that runs through your mind is just crazy. And just when you didn't think they could find another reason, they do. And now I'm going to be put on trial for shooting Iranians. Imagine that. This guy that I called number 2 because he was always taking orders from somebody else, but he spoke very good English. He explained to me that these mullahs here, they're going to, ask you some questions. I will be the interpreter and your lawyer. He says you're being tried in, Islamic court for, according to whatever law, the Sharia law they're going to have for shooting and killing Iranians. And I try to tell him I didn't shoot anybody. I lied, man. I didn't shoot anybody. I stuck with it. I was down in the mailroom. And of course, there was no one there that could verify that or come up with accusations. And then that hit me. I said, look, guys, I stood up, man, and I held onto the table, and I said, look, you say you're a holy man. I defended myself as best I could in that courtroom, and I had to use the logic that these guys are religious mullahs. I said, you plan on running your country in a theology way, according to your religious laws. There must be justice. Maybe not a constitution, but you're going to have the Holy Quran. You're going to have to give me the benefit of the doubt. You have no video. You have no bodies. You have no witnesses. You have nothing, no evidence. It's just like walking down the street and accusing somebody, and then you taking them out and finding them guilty. That's the best way that you're going to be able to set up a justice system in your country. And if you do that way and you teach your people like that, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to have another revolution on your hands. So I don't recognize this court or any of you to try me for any reason. And if you do, I want to see every piece of evidence against me. Mm-hmm. And I just kept giving it to them until I just about passed out. And they were kind of shocked because the whole time I was being a Perry Mason for myself, this guy is talking back and forth and interpreting to the mullahs. And they're nudging each other and they're looking at each other like, where did he get his law degree at? And so they had a little talking session, and they took me back to my hotel room to see my buddies again. And Abdel says, you're earning a nickname here. I forget the Farsi word for it. I kept looking for it, but it's something like a boomerang that just keep coming back and forth. I said, this one was fun. I said, they didn't torture me or beat me. They put me on trial, and, they accused me of these crimes. And his eyeballs got really big. And he says, you were in trial? You had the mullahs, you had this, you had that. And I said, yeah, the whole 9 yards. I barked back at him, and I demanded to see this and that and the other thing, and they didn't have anything on me. And he put his head down, closed his head, and shook like that. And he said, Marine, he says, that's not good. And I said, why? What's not good? They ain't got on me. And we just left it at that, and we had another round of rice and mystery meat. Number 2 came down after I woke up. I don't know if it's the same day or not. Again, totally deprived of time. And when he came down, he was never down there before in the cells. He was asking where the American was. And he says, in cell number 5, he came in and he walks in and he said something to these guys in Farsi. And then he said, your trial will not resume. He said, the mullahs have acquired all the information and answers to your questions. You have been found guilty. I said, really? Well, what a shock. Big surprise. And I said, okay, so what's that mean? And I'm being sarcastic with it because I'm out of my mind and with pain. And I said, okay, what's that mean? And he says, you'll be executed. Shot tomorrow, probably. What? Just shook his shoulders and walked out.
Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Abdal said something Farsi to the rest of the guys in the room, hearing what this guy said. And they just all looked down and they're it's like, sorry to hear that. Well, the next time they take you out, you ain't coming back.
Yeah. Man, this is it's not motivating. It's just incredible. You mentioned in your book about these demons, and man, they are true demons.
Well, it's the whole thing is you're sitting there and you're saying after everything you've been through that this is not real. It's like watching, you're trying to convince your your mind, this is not hell that you've already died. And then you got to say, how do you prepare yourself for that?
Right. Right.
You're
What a
laying there,
shock.
you lay there and you say, they're going to shoot you. And you say, well, they're just going to shoot me in the head. Are they going to stand me up in a firing squad? Is it going to hurt when it goes through? And how are you going to go out? You're going to look them in the eye, blindfold, spit in their face. All these weird things that maybe Hollywood has ever conjured up in your mind. And then you're laying there and you're so tired that you close your eyes and you think you're sleeping, but actually it's like you're in a whiteout condition. Is that you're talking to yourself. The weirdest thing, Steve, is that it's just, you pray to God and you say, Lord, it's just, if it's your will, it's going to happen. Nobody knows I'm here. There's no way out of this. I said, if there's any other miracles left here, I'm just pretty much run out of miracles. I don't have any more on the calendar, I'm sure. But there's one thing that's, and until this day, this very conversation, Steve, I've always thought this. And it's so weird is that what came over me was my desire not to have it quick or the pain or anything. I mean, I was in so much pain. I don't think I was going to feel it no matter where they shot me, really. And I just prayed to God. I said, look, when I'm dead and gone, don't let them lie about me. Don't let them say I was a baby raper or a criminal or some kind of horrible person, because I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a United States Marine. I serve in the forces that guard our country and our way of life. And I'm prepared to give my life in their defense. But let me go out with honor. Mm-hmm. You win, you torture me, you beat me, you win. You shoot me. I don't even give a shit if you drag me through the streets naked. Halfway done that already. What I don't want you to do is come up with lies and falsehoods, heinous criminal accusations that my family would have to live down and be ashamed of. The country would be embarrassed and have to defend. And the Marine Corps traditions and all my brothers, I couldn't let them down either. Mm. And that's what went through my mind, really, is shoot me, kill me, shoot straight, don't make a mess of it,
Yeah.
But when it's dead and gone, just wrap me up, ship me home, bury me anywhere, but just don't lie about me. And that's the weirdest thing in the world, man. Is it? So I couldn't sleep. I don't think it's. I like to say I lay down. Your mind just goes at it. I know there was a long stretch of time that seemed comparable to the shorter times that they would come in to grab me, and then they did come down. Still, I had no idea what time it was, whatever. And they brought down 2 goons, and number 2, and another guy was with them. And I said, like, you really need these goons. I can't even stand up. I can't even walk. Another day and I'll be dead anyway. They helped me up the steps, the 2 landings up to a different hallway that I ever went down before. And it was just a long hallway. It seemed like it connected another building, and they were dragging and pulling along because, I'm hop along. I can't move. I'm all busted up. Ribs and bones never stopped barking at me. And we got to a big steel door, and he had a key, a weird looking key that's like a jail key, and opened it up. And I could tell we were above ground, and it was so cold and it was clear. You could smell the air. It was like, oh my God, fresh air. I mean, that was amazing, but it was also very cold air as compared to what was down below. And then I see these steel steps, and I realized when you look above the steps, you could see a little light right from beneath the weather strip on the door up there. And mm-hmm. I knew that was the roof that led to the roof up there. And they started pushing me and trying to drag me up the steps. One of the miracles that had come back from somebody that read my book that I'm about to tell you about is so strange, because it's so hard to try to step on the steel stance and pull yourself up with your ribs and your socket bone and your toe looking south to Miami. It's very difficult to get up. And that in itself was a blessing, where someone asked me, do you think that could have been an extra miracle that they broke that toe? Because here's the timing of it. Just as we were climbing, they were trying to get me up these steps to go to the roof for the firing squad. Number 2 comes running down the hallway screaming in Farsi and yelling and waving all that. And they get hold of me, and he pushes the other guy out of the way, and they start barking back and forth, bantering back and forth, and have a real go at it. And the next thing you know is that they're walking me back down the same hallway where I just was. And I said, no, God, I thought it was another mock execution, or bring him up so close to think he's going to get shot and then take him away again. So we get to the end of this hallway, and I mean, it's a long walk because you're injured and you just can't move. You're like a snail, and they don't want to. They're tired of walking slow, and they're just dragging you along. We didn't turn left to go back downstairs again, where I thought we would, back towards the my cell. We went back up another steps, and we went through a gate, and now we were up in an office area, like an admin area. It wasn't the same. It was the same building, but it looked like I just stepped into an administrative, section, and not the cells section. Mm-hmm. And looking around, they hauled me in just a few doors down, and for the first time, and I don't know how long, but since I was shot, I saw a window, and it was sunlight out there. I said, "Oh man, it's daylight," and the lights were brighter up there because I had to shield my eyes with the as compared to the little incandescent bulbs we had down below. And they parked my ass on a chair in the office, and it was a regular office. It had a phone in it. It had a lamp on the desk, and had stationary stuff. And they just let me stay there, and they didn't even have a guard. The door was open, no guard or nothing. I just sat in a chair and huddled over top of the desk, just waiting to see what the heck was going on. And it wasn't too long, but probably within a half an hour or so, I think, I could see people walking back and forth, and they were dressed in regular clothes. It looked like they not prison garb or anything. And it really blew my mind. I thought I was hallucinating. And it's weird because two guys come in. They looked like dressed like the Russians again, suits and ties and all that. And they had one had a German accent, one had a French accent. I said, I'm not used to it again. I'm tired of it, man. It's a torture it just goes on. It never ends. Mm-hmm. And they introduced themselves, and they said they're from the International Red Cross. I said, yeah, and I'm the next pope. Let's go. Can't you do better than that? And they showed me their credentials, and, they said, let's just say you are who you say you are. What's the game here? And he's saying, we're here to execute your release. I said, my release. And he says, the Iranians are going to turn you over to the International Red Cross. We're going to take you back to the embassy. I said, come on, guys, just take me back up and shoot me on the roof. I can't handle this. I'm dead. I'm broken. I mean, you've got to me. Mm-hmm. And they said no, and they walked out of the room, and from about 50 feet away, there was a guy in a light-colored London Fog overcoat, leather gloves and hat, and he turns and he starts walking towards, the office, and I'm looking at him, and I'm saying, God, now who's this guy? And he's looking at me, and he's walking towards me, and he's getting closer. I'm saying, I recognize this guy. He looks familiar. And as he gets near the door, he goes, Ken, you're alive.
That's got to be the best feeling in the world.
It was Jack Schellenberger. He was a consular officer at the embassy. Mm-hmm. And I said, you're alive. And he said, oh, my God, we've been looking for you. He says, you look like shit. And I went to stand up, and I fell in his arms because I couldn't hold myself up. And I fell in his arms, and I was hugging him, and I was crying. And I didn't think it was real, Steve. I didn't believe it was real. I thought maybe they had already shot me, and this was like a leftover in my mind somewhere. And I remember telling I need to smell you. I need to smell your cologne. I need to know. Everything else was just busted up. Nothing else worked. There was no other hope left. And he said, no, Ken. He said, I'm real. We've been looking for you. We're here to take you home. And he says, all the way home, Ken. I said, oh, my God, Jack. Well, the ambassadors or whoever they were from the Red Cross come in, and they had brought me some clothes and a jacket, and I changed in there, and there was some more paperwork and some other shit that had to be taken care of. And Jack came back in and says, we're going home, Ken. Let's get out of this hellhole. And he held me up, and one of the other guys, he was helpful. They walked me out to the front door. Mm-hmm. And there's a double sets of doors. And I looked back in and saying, how long was I here? He says, you've been missing for a week. I said, a week? Jesus Christ, Jack, I thought it was a year. Mm-hmm. That's how bad it felt. And he said, no, Ken. He says, you were taken out of the hospital, and when comedies people came back and we got the embassy taken back over, you were missing and we didn't know where you were. He says the government is in such turmoil. Bazagar government doesn't know what's going on. Shapur Bakhtiar doesn't know what's going on. The prime minister doesn't. Nobody knows what's going on. You can't even talk to anybody. Nobody's in charge. Everybody thinks there's in charge, but nobody wants responsibility. There's no authority. I can vouch for that. And he said he had a picture of you on the Cayenne and the Tehran Journal, and he showed me the picture, and it's got that same picture that the BBC reporter had taken a picture out, and it says, Marine guard taken hostage, kidnapped. And when they went looking for me at the hospital from where they knew that I should have been, everybody at the hospital lied. They denied having me there. Nobody was there. Nobody saw me.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, how do you explain this picture here? That's what I said earlier. If it was for that picture of me of there in that bed, they could have denied it, and they would have never known. Eventually, somebody at the hospital would have told them that these goons took me over to Avon prison. I'm speculating at that point. That's how they found out where I was.
That picture saved your life.
That's one of them, but it did save my life, but it wasn't the only thing. But without that, it would have been nothing. I'd have been gone.
Right.
I'd have been dead. So I went back to the embassy, and they drove me through the gate, and I remember the ambassador William Sullivan there. We went to his residence, and there was a Marine guard there, MSG, and he said he didn't have a weapon. I looked at him. The guards now that were guarding the guards had the weapons, and the Marines weren't allowed to have weapons. And I said, what was that? So anyway, they helped me out, and they got me to the ambassadors, and there was a medic there or a doctor, and he looked over my wounds and said, Jesus Christ, man, what happened to you? And I tried to tell him, and he just said, okay. They fixed me up, cleaned me up. I took a sponge bath, and then came back down and had it's late at night. I forget what time it was, but we had tried to get a little something to eat, and my stomach couldn't take whatever they were. It's like Salisbury steak and mashed potatoes or whatever, and I just needed something to drink. I just couldn't hydrate myself enough. And the ambassador and Bruce Langan, the Charge d'Affaires, a couple of secret squirrels, and some American military officers that were funny because they were in civilian clothes, not uniform, but you could tell by their hair and their mannerisms. And it wasn't really a debrief. It was just the opposite. They were telling me what happened and everything that explained through the week and why they were looking for me and what happened and all that. And nobody ever answered my questions about what happened and why and who and where. And he said, don't worry about it. He says, you're going to be out of here in a few hours. And I said, where am I going? He says, you're going home. He says, you were under a fatwa, which is a religious law. You've been condemned to death by the Islamic court. They can kill you anytime they want for any reason, anytime. And we've been told if you were allowed to go back to the embassy, that the Iranian government had turned you over mercifully so they look good to the International Red Cross. So everybody thinks the Red Cross has got you and that they're going to look good in the revolution here. And I said, in reality, so we got to get you to the airport by the crack of dawn. And that's another picture. It's got the picture of me with the clothes on that they gave me embassy, and they got a goon on either side of me, and you can see that. I'll show you that picture. It's in there. It's in the special edition. One's carrying an Uzi, one's carrying a J3 weapon, rifle, and they are saying they're escorting me to the Mehrabad airport when actually I was being deported. Because with the last thing, one of these mullah guys, it says that you have been found guilty, and if you ever come back to Iran, you'll be executed on the spot. And I told mother, if I ever come back, it's going to be in a B-52. Bet you're fast on that one. And he didn't speak real good English, but I know he understood. He got the gist of what I was saying.
He got the point.
Yeah, he got the point. Anyway, so I had to get helped up the stairs and onto the I think it was a DC-9. And I was just in really bad shape. They did the best they could, put everything back together and clean my wounds and my tooth. But the ribs and the bones are still, and the butt bones, man, they hurt. And there was only that plane could probably fit about 200 people. I don't bet you there was like 30 people on it. It was all different Americans of different types, and it had a lot of French writing in it. So I think it was either Swiss or Air France. I'm not sure. And we had a female stewardess, and as we backed out away from the gate, here's the shit that goes through your mind, is that we're back out the window of the gate. I'm sitting there giving them one finger salute in the window, and I'm saying the last thing, if I could have got my pants down, I would have pressed ham on against the glass. You know what I mean? I said, kiss this one. I'm gone. But I couldn't move. I was just laying on the chairs there. And then all of a sudden the plane stops. and it starts taxiing back towards the terminal. And I was going to say that I just returned and use that as an excuse to kill me. These are some of the weird things that after being so broke down that it's still in your mind going crazy. And, they went back to turn on a different taxiway. Thank God. And just as we started to roll, man, he started going, I looked out that window and I said, the sun, oh my God, look at this sun. I haven't seen the sun in so long, because when they took me out of the embassy, it was already dark. So I only got a barely blight of sunlight. I remember as that bird started rolling faster, and as the wheels went up, everybody on the plane cheered. I said, oh my God, that's amazing. And wheels in the well. And I said, maybe I can get some sleep now. And I'm trying to find a position to get comfortable. I know we're about half an hour into the flight or so, not too far. And somebody says, oh my God, there's fighter jets on either wing of the plane. I said, what? I hear this commotion. So I try to get up, and the stewardess, she helps me, and I wanted to go forward to where I could see out the window. And sure as shit, I look out the side, and here's an F-4 Phantom and an F-4 Phantom on each wing. And they got ordnance underneath. They got missiles. And again, I'm saying, are they really going to shoot me down? Are they going to shoot this plane down and say something happened? It was an accident. That's how messed up your mind was. That's how much they have gotten inside the DNA of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, oh my God, they're going to, say it was an accident. He got shot down by accident. And they finally found something to kill me for and then get away with it. But just moments later, all of a sudden they peel off. The two F-4 peels off. We don't see them anymore. And again, I'm thinking, being an air traffic controller and being a combat air traffic controller, I said, no, they're coming around to get a missile shot on the rear. Here I am trying to tell the pilot, hey, they're going to shoot us down from the bay. And they're going in. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, he had an accent. He's saying, oh, this was great. He said, we just left Iranian airspace and entered the sovereign air power of Turkey. We are now in Turkish territory.
Oh,
and he dipped the wings. He dipped the wings this way, and everybody went bug shit on there. And the stewards went and got all those little bottles of the booze and opened them up. I don't even remember what I drank, but I guzzled 3 or 4 of those as I could. I said, we're in Turkish airspace. We're in NATO. Yeah, baby, we're going home.
That had to be.
That's how fearful and psycho it got. And then we took that bird all the way to Wiesbaden, to Germany, where I was met with an entourage and swooped up and taken to, and they did a lot more medical procedures on me and fixed me up and, re-stitched me, opened me up, cleaned me out, stitched me up, fixed my toe for the best they could and wrapped and tied that up. And they said, there's not much we can do about your sacrococcyx bone. They didn't even give me x-rays. They gave me a pillow and a cushion to sit on it.
Yeah.
But it's the walking that hurts. I mean, they can't put a cast on your butt,
Yeah, exactly. Hold up right there if you don't mind, because we've been going quite a while on this one. This was extremely emotional.
Yeah, it was.
I can't imagine what you went through, brother. God bless you for surviving, maintaining your honor, because I don't know that I would have the mental strength to go through what you went through, much less the physical strength. What I'd like to do is bring you back for a third episode, where we'll talk about getting you back to the United States and what happened after that, and having to deal with all the demons that are still rolling around up in this part, the PTSD that goes along with it. So if you're agreeable, I'll bring you back tomorrow. We'll get through this. Oh my gosh, this is what I just want to say to all our listeners is thank you for hanging there with us. If you haven't teared up on this one, you're a cold-hearted son of a gun. I'll tell you what, I'm fighting it right now.
Steve, you mentioned it earlier, and you were one of many people that when they get through the book, they said in parts that I can't talk about per se on radio or TV that is in the book that you read in detail. And you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Is that a lot of them have said they had to put the book down, walk away, or some had to definitely use a box of Kleenex and tissues. How do you think
Absolutely.
I felt after having to put those demons away for decades, 46 years, sir, and then pull them out again and unchain them and deal with them
and write a book? Ladies and gentlemen, you got to come back to the third episode. This is one of a kind. So Ken, just thank you so much for your transparency, for your openness, for being willing to go through all these horrific events again in your life, not to entertain us, but to tell us about the demons that are out there. Because man, we go through hell and back in our country, and within a couple of years we forget. This is all about not forgetting. Again, thank y'all for coming back. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Ken, please come back. Everybody, God bless.
I'll be here, sir.
Tomorrow. Thank you, brother.
God bless. Thank you, sir.